All right, y'all. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm gonna make my face a little bigger today. I feel like doing that. I thought that'd be kind of fun. So there you go. You can see me a little bit better. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Anyways, so we're going to go over parallel lines and transversals today. Hopefully, you watched that other video as well. That's kind of a nice introduction to what we're doing. It's very similar. I'm just going to kind of go over those main points and touch on some of the vocab that I really want you guys to really kind of really understand well. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about transversals again. Okay. So two lines are cut by a transversal. Okay, that's just any time we have two lines. Okay, and then one line intersects both. Okay, so we've got this line right here. I've got an intersection here and here. So this is my transversal. Okay, and then these are what I like to call my, I know this is going to sound weird, but I like to call these my two lines. Okay, my two lines. Okay, I kind of like to talk about it like that. Okay, so I know that sounds weird, but we want to think about those as the two lines, okay, as kind of one thing, because then we can, it helps us with our exterior and interior angles, okay? So, and that's actually the first thing we're going to go ahead and talk about, all right? You've got exterior and interior angles. Now, what determines the exterior and the interior angles is the two lines, okay? So those two lines, here's my interior, all right, there's the interior, and then everything on the outside of that, so everything out here, right, is my exterior. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to fill in this little chart, okay, and we will kind of fill in these the boxes, okay. So with the exterior angles, all right, so the numbers here, right, you've got 1, 3, 6, and 8, and again, everything it's out here, okay, it's the parts that are out here, and then the parts that are out here. Okay, so we've got angle 1, okay, we've got angle 3, we've got angle 6, and we've got angle 8. All right, and that's it for my exterior. Okay, let's talk about the interior. That's everything inside my two lines. All right, so I've got 2, 4, 5, and 7. Angle 2, angle 4, angle 5, angle 7. Okay, so it's either exterior or interior. Okay, you're one or the other. Okay, if we're talking about the angles that are formed between two lines and a transversal. Okay, now corresponding angles. Okay, I'll go ahead and say the rest of these. Okay, these in here. All right, all these four boxes. The rest of the four are going to be pairs. Okay, these are the vocab words that we're going to use to respond to different pairs. Okay, so each of these you've got a matching pair. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about corresponding angles. Now, the video talks about corresponding angles, but I didn't feel like it did a great job of really identifying it. That's why I want to have this video as well. So what I like to do is I like to draw a circle on each of my intersections. Okay? And when I think about corresponding angles, right, you think about two things that correspond. Okay? Well, they're in the same position. Okay? The same relative position. Okay? So corresponding is kind of like matching. All right? And so that matching in this sense is in the same position. So let's think about our little circle here that we drew with the intersection. Okay, let's go ahead and draw our first corresponding angle with angle 1. Okay, so we'll say angle, and we can kind of split it like this because we're going to have 4 different pairs of corresponding angles. Okay, so angle 1 and, all right, well, let's look at this one. In my little intersection, notice that this is in the top left corner. Okay, it's on top and it's on the left. Okay, the one that's corresponding is the other one that's in the top left corner. Okay, and I know this one's a little bit slanted, all right, so it's a little bit funky, but it's still, this 5 right here is still in the top left corner. So my first pair of corresponding angles is angle 1 and angle 5. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's just do the rest. Okay, so angle 3. Okay, well, think about what angle 3 will match up with. Okay, well, I notice that this one's in the bottom left. Okay, so I'm looking at my intersection. This one's also in the bottom left. All right, so this is 3 and 7 are corresponding. Okay, and then number 2. angle 2. All right, angle 2 is up here. This is in the top right of my intersection. This is in the top right, so it is 6. Angle 6. And then for our last pair of corresponding angles, we have 4, and this is in the bottom left, bottom right. This is in the bottom right-hand corner, and then 8 is also in the bottom right-hand corner. So that is angle 8. Okay, those are the corresponding angles. All right, let's go ahead and do the rest of them. Okay, alternate exterior angles. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about this word alternate. Okay, alternating, you think like on on the opposite side or something like that, or kind of reversing in a way, right? We are switching. Okay, we're switching. That's another way to think about with alternating, and that is very similar to what we have. Okay, so every time we see alternate, okay, we want to think opposite side of the transversal. All right, I'm telling you, every time you see alternate, you want to think the opposite side of the transversal. Okay, and then every time you see consecutive, I know there's a lot of arrows. Okay, we're going to think same side of transversal. All right, so alternate, opposite side of the transversal, consecutive, same side of transversal. Okay, all right, so here we go. We're still looking at pairs. All right, so I'm going to have 4 pairs again. Sorry, two pairs for alternate exterior angles. So we'll just split 1 and 1. Okay, and with the opposite side of the transversal. Okay, so we're looking at exterior angles that are on the opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so that really limits us to just a few, right? Because I'm not looking at everything in the middle here now. Right, I'm just looking on the outside. I'm looking at these on the outside here. So my options so far are 1, 3, 6, and 8. Okay? Now, let's think about what 1 and 3 are. Yes, technically, they're on the opposite side of the transversal. Okay? But we already know what 1 and 3 are. Okay? That's a vocab word that we've already learned. Okay? 1 and 3 happen to be a linear pair. Okay? So since they're a linear pair, they can't be alternate exterior angles. Something to keep in mind. Okay? But one that is on the alternating, the opposite side of the transversal with 1, okay, that's also exterior, is 8. Okay, so you can kind of see the pattern, right? This is 1 and 8. Those are alternate exterior angles, right? It's on the opposite side of the transversal. This one's on the top for 1, and this one's on the bottom, and they're both exterior. Okay, exterior, again, the 2 lines determine my exterior and interior. All right, so this is 1 and 8. All right, and then the other one is 3 and 6. Okay, so those are my 2 alternate exterior angle pairs, right? These are pairs, okay? They come as a team. It's not just, you can't have just one angle that's an alternate exterior angle. You have to have a pair, a matching pair for alternate exterior angles. Let's talk about alternate interior angles, okay? So now we're working interior, right, in between my hands. Okay, so I'm looking at 2, 4, 5, and 7. Again, 2 and 4 are technically alternating on the sides of the transversal. Okay, and they're also interior. But what do we know 2 and 4 are? 2 and 4 are a linear pair, so it's not alternate interior. Okay, but 2 and 7 are. Okay, they're both interior. Again, that's interior. Everything you see there. And then they are on the opposite side of the transversal. So 2 and 7. Okay, and then my other one is 4 and 5. Sweet. Okay, and then consecutive interior angles. Okay, those are the ones that are on the same side of the transversal. Okay, but interior. Okay, so I'm looking at this. Right, 2 and, well, which one's on the same side of the transversal? This is my transversal. Okay, so it's going to be 2 and 5. And then the one on the bottom, 4 and 7. Okay? All right. So those are your pairs, right? These four are the pairs, and these just happen to be exterior or interior. Okay. Now I'm going to move my face a little bit, actually. Now up to the top. Okay. And I'm going to look at these down here. Okay. So under this line, under this dotted line, okay, this is if the lines are parallel. Here are the theorems. Okay. So if these lines are parallel, and let's go ahead and just, for notation's sake, if this is line L and this is line M, okay, in other words, this is line L is parallel to M. Okay, so just to kind of emphasize the notation, right? This symbol means parallel. Okay, so these two lines are parallel. Well, if that's the case, then what happens? Okay, now this is where we'll kind of refer to the video. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and actually use that same kind of technique that they were using in the video with highlighting all the ones that are the same. Okay, where it was kind of like it had the, I think in the video it was like the X's and O's. Okay, so I'm going to do yellow for the ones that are the same. These two are vertical. Okay, and then you're going to get this up here and then this up here. All right, and then we've got the other one, and let's see, let's just test out orange. Yeah, orange looks pretty good. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do orange and yellow. Okay, so something like that. Those are the ones that are all going to be the same. Remember, they're only the same though, right? The highlighted ones, if these lines are parallel. Okay, they have to be parallel, otherwise that property doesn't hold. Okay, so let's look at all these pairs and think about what the relationship is. All right, so alternate exterior angles. Right, we've already laid out one. Okay, angle 1 and angle 8. So let's go ahead and look at angle 1 and angle 8. And these, and just by the way, these happen to kind of match up with the same spots, right? 1, 1, 2, 2. They're kind of in the same relative position, so we can still use this. Okay, so the alternate exterior angles. Let's look and see what happens. Okay, 1 and 8. Okay, notice they're the same color. So what does that mean? That means they are congruent. Okay, so they're congruent. Now I'll go ahead and write a big congruent sign. That means they're the same. Okay, alternate interior. Let's look at the alternate interior. 2 and 7. Okay, 2 and 7. All right, so they're the same. They are also the same. Okay, the same color. We could have done 4 and 5 as well, right? 4 and 5. Let's look and see if those are the same. Yes, they are. Okay, 4 and 5. Okay, so those are the same as well. Okay, consecutive interior. Okay, let's look at those. Okay, consecutive interior. Let's look at 2 and 5. 2 and 5. Notice these are different colors. So if you remember from the video, when they were different colors, they were supplementary, which means they add up to 180. So the ones that are different colors, they add up to 180. I'll go ahead and just write 180 for us to remember the consecutive interior angles theorem. Okay. And now, just one thing I want to point out, right, is this is abbreviations, right? Alternate exterior angles, alternate interior angles, consecutive interior angles. That's this in here. Okay, and then corresponding. Corresponding is our most basic, but we've got angle 1 and angle 5. Let's look at that one. Okay, yellow and yellow. All right, so these are also congruent. Cool. Okay, so we now know, right? This is a nice little sheet. I'll post the blank one so you guys can have that one if you want to print it out or anything like that. But it's a nice little sheet to have because it has it all nice and laid out. And I'll go ahead and move my face so you can see it a little bit better. Yeah, get my fat head out of here. All right, there it is. Okay, so there's that sheet. All right, I do want to do one example. I'm going to go ahead and do it on the back. Okay, actually I'm going to do it on a different sheet so I can reference our original, our little study sheet in here. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do one relatively hard example of parallel lines and transversals. Okay, so I've got a line, and I've got another line, and on this one I've got one here, and then I've got one here. Now, I'm going to use my parallel line symbols. Okay, when you see an arrow in the middle, that means these two are parallel. Okay, I'm also going to put 2 arrows here, so that means these 2 are parallel. Right, so because it's 2, 2, those match up, and then the 1, 1 matches up. Okay, and let's say we said that this angle was 8x plus 8. All right, that angle up there. And then I said that this angle was 2x minus 4. Okay, so one thing we want to do is we want to identify the pair. All right, that's typically what we want to do first. Okay, we do need to know this vocab. All right, we do need to know alternate exterior angles, alternate interior angles, consecutive interior, and corresponding. So typically what you have on these problems is you have a pair, right? And you say, okay, which one is it? Is it corresponding? Is it alternate exterior? What's the relationship between the two angles that we know information about? Okay, well the two angles that we know the information about is this one up here and this one down here. Okay, but notice, these are not on a connecting transversal, right? The only way to connect it is to get like to two different intersections. Okay, and what I mean by that is this. If I were to cover this part, right, now I've got a transversal and then my two lines. Okay, if I were to cover, I don't know, the bottom, right, I've got my two lines and then the transversal. Okay, or if I were to cover the, this part over here, right, or the top, okay, you've got the picture that looks pretty similar to what we have here. Okay, but it does change a little bit when you add more lines. Okay, so it does complicate things a little bit. There's no word for the relationship between these two, right? Because it doesn't really fit with our parallel line and transversal, kind of that realm that we were working in. Okay, so we can't really work with it yet, but it's kind of like a two-step problem. Okay, so let's do that same process that we were doing with the problems where we were kind of using the highlighters and you do yellow and orange, or X and O, right, is what it was doing in the video. But let's go ahead and try that out, just one piece at a time. Okay, so let's just do this piece on the left. Let's make this part yellow, and then this one yellow. Okay, and then we've got this one yellow, and this one yellow. Okay, and then we alternate. All right, so let's go with the orange one. So orange up here, orange, orange, orange. Okay, so now we've got our matching pieces for just that one on the left. All right, but can we do the same thing here? Well, sure, why not? We've got our parallel lines, right? These two are parallel, and then the transversal. Okay, so since these two are parallel, we can do that, and we know they match up. So let's go ahead and make this one here, and then we've got this yellow and this yellow. Okay, so now we've got it all matched up. Okay, and then we can determine what the relationship is from here. All right, and we didn't even need to use this one. Okay, and so if we're trying to find x, right, we can now say the relationship, right? And so if the problem was, find x, okay, and then find each angle, right, or each, we'll leave it at each angle. We could now do that because we know the relationship, okay? And then the question is, what is the relationship? That's always the first thing we want to talk about. And with these, right, they're either congruent, right? They're all either, they're either a yellow and a yellow, or it's a orange and a yellow, or it's a orange and an orange, okay? So since this is a yellow and an orange, though, since they're different, that means they are supplementary, which means they add up to 180. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to take this, 8x plus 8, and I'm going to add it to 2x minus 4. And I know that those have to add up to 180. Okay, so from here I'm doing the algebra, all right? I combine my like terms. I've got 8x and 2x. That combines up to 10x. Okay, and then I've got 8, and I've got the minus 4. Okay, so 8 plus minus 4, that's going to get me just 4. Okay, and then I've got equals 180. All right, I will subtract 4. So I've got 10x is equal to 176. And then I will divide by 10. All right, divide by 10 to get my x. And so I get x is equal to 17.6. Okay, and so that's one part, right? That's one part. I found x. I can check that off. Okay, and then to find each angle, all right, well, let's just make this simple. Let's find the yellow one. Okay, so the yellow angles. All right, well, what's the information on the yellow angle? That's 8x plus 8. Okay, so the yellow angle, instead of x, since I know x, 17.6. I'm just plugging it in up here, right? 8 instead of x, I'm writing 17.6, and then I add 8. All right. So we'll go ahead and get a quick calculator. And we've got 8 times 17.6, and then I will add 8. So I end up with 148.8. Okay, so that's all my yellow angles. All right, so I got one. Okay, now 2 different ways to find the orange ones. Okay, either I can plug it into that, I can plug x into that information, or we can think about the relationship that we know between the yellow and the orange. Okay, well, what is the yellow plus the orange, right? They have to add up to 180. That's our whole point that we've been working with, right? If they're different colors, they add up to 180. So let's just go ahead and do this. Let's get my orange one. Okay, and we know it's going to be 180 minus my yellow one, which is 148.8. Okay, so 180 minus 148.8, and I'm going to get 31.2. Okay, now you would get the exact same angle. Yeah, you get this exact same angle if you plugged it in here. Okay, just to double check, maybe I had a panic attack that it wouldn't. We could do that here. Okay, the 17.6 times 2. Oops. Times 2. And then the minus 4. Yeah, and so we're going to get that 31.2 that we got here. Okay, so that's parallel lines and transversals at a glance, where we do a kind of a more complicated one where we've got more than one parallel line transversal. We kind of got a grid going on there. So it just makes it just a bit more complicated. So yeah, and then the last term that I wanted to talk about, okay, is skew lines. You may see that word, that vocab word, skew lines. Now the best way I know to describe skew lines, especially when with a video, right? It's definitely an easier concept to go over like in person, to be completely honest, but that's okay. All right, I've got a cube. Working on my art skills today. All right, I've got a cube. Now, visualize this cube in your head, right? These lines in the back, you can't see these lines, okay? Those little dashed lines, okay? And what skew is not intersecting, okay, but not parallel, okay? That's kind of the way I like to think about it, all right? When you think about not intersecting, 2 lines that don't intersect, everyone says, boom, parallel, okay? But not necessarily, okay? What skew is it's like this. Imagine a cube, and if you've got like a dice at home, or even like a tissue box or something like that, it's a great visualization. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and look at this line right here. All right, let's look at that line. Okay, but like I said, people like to say, oh, if they don't intersect, they're parallel, but that's not necessarily true. Okay, so let's look at that. It's kind of like the front top line. Okay, and let's look at this line over here. Okay, if I were to extend those 2 lines out, thinking about in 3D space, if I were to extend them out, right, you've got this front one that goes straight across, right, and then you got this one on the bottom, sort of, that goes kind of to the back and to the front. Those 2 lines will never intersect, and that's what skew is. Okay, so if we wanted to kind of give these points, maybe let's say A, this is B, okay, and I've got C, D. Okay, so we could say that lines A, B and C, D are skew. Skew. Okay, so that's what skew is. So don't think that if they don't intersect, they're parallel. Okay, that's not always true, right? This is parallel. This is parallel. Right? Or even, let's think about maybe the 3D one. Let's think about a 3D example. Parallel would be like these 2. Okay? And you can think of other examples in the parallel sense as well. All right? But that is skew. That's just another vocab word that we have for this class. All right? Hope you guys have a great day. Y'all take care.